So the population of the county that Portland's located in, Multnomah County, it decreased by over 12,000 people last year. And you might think, well, that doesn't surprise me with all the craziness that Portland's had going on. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What's wild is that the population of Oregon in general increased by 0.5%. So this 12,000 people, you've got a lot of people coming in, but even more people left. And if you start to look at some other cities, the in-migration, the out-migration, who's getting more people, who's not, it's super interesting. You're not going to be shocked because you're reasonable. And you're like, why would people want to live in a city like Seattle or Portland? I get that all the time. Why do you even want to live there? Well, somebody's got to go down with the ship, right? I mean, might as well be me. And there are some crazy, fun, good things about Seattle and Portland. Just right now, got a little bit of shakiness, got some issues going on, got a few small, tiny hairline fractures in the foundation. Now, we've got some issues to be sure, but that gives me podcast content for days. So that's what we're doing. All right. So Multnomah County lost 12,000 people last year. Think of Multnomah County, Portland. Okay. Let's go with that. Let's see what we got. Population of Multnomah County fell by 12,494 people last year, the largest decline of any county in larger Portland. Multnomah's county population declined by 1.5% compared to an overall 0.2% decrease for the 7-county area. The decrease happened during a year of unprecedented turmoil, including job losses caused by COVID-19 pandemic, ongoing political protests. We never thought that would happen, that would have any impact on population, did we? No. Why would people move out? It's perfectly normal in Portland. You've just got, people doing bonfires and things at night on the federal building. That's pretty normal. I mean, who doesn't want, it's free entertainment, right? Rising gun violence, big factor there, and increasing housing costs. So it's nothing new, but it's this perfect trifecta or perfect whatever you want to call it, of situation going on that people are like, maybe not so much. Let's look elsewhere. And if this were just happening in Portland, you'd be able to say, okay, all right, yeah, Portland had it especially bad during this time period. Portland had it especially bad. They've got some additional features, situations going on that make it particularly, a case where people are going out versus going in. But we're going to get to it in just a sec here, how this is a across the nation type situation. So the loss seems especially significant because Oregon's population grew 0.54% overall during the same period, went up. So people are leaving Portland, they're going to outside areas, and then more people are going in, but they're not going into Portland. They're not going into Multnomah County. Now, Portland is kind of the big city in that area. And all big cities had kind of a mass exodus during the coronavirus, right? So that's a lot of what you're seeing. Will there be a mass return to the downtown core? Well, that is the ongoing struggle right now for a lot of big cities. And one of the things that you're seeing is you're seeing big cities across the United States. Yeah, they're not really saying much, but you know what they're doing? Yeah, the homeless encampments, we're sweeping them. We're sweeping them. Like, they're coming up with things like the mayor of Seattle is basically stating, and I get what he's doing, and I approve. But, this could have been done a long time ago. He is taking a situation where if homeless encampments are on if they're obstructing a public right-of-way, They're out of there, and you don't have to do the 72-hour posting ahead of time. You don't have to post, hey, we're going to sweep your camps, be prepared. And they don't have to provide services, meaning they don't have to have people out there saying, hey, can we get you some help? They're just, boom, doing it. And you're seeing this happen across the United States en masse, because a lot of times the downtown core has been impacted, and you've got an increase of crime, you've got homelessness, you've got a look that isn't great. And we're trying to get these employees back in there, because the whole situation is you've got people that are working in the buildings. You've got to have the surrounding businesses operating, the small little delis, the places people eat at, places people get their laundry done when they're at work on their lunch break. All of those businesses suffer as a result if there's nobody working in downtown. We've got this telecommute thing that's going on forever. And a lot of businesses are saying, no, back to the office you go. And then here in Seattle and in Portland, companies are saying, not so much. You know what, that whole downtown thing, we know we've got office space there, but we've got office space elsewhere, as a lot of big companies do. And we're probably going to have our people work anywhere but downtown. I did a live stream and a couple of live streams down in downtown Seattle, not too a couple of weeks back. And one of them was, hey, look up at that building. That's an Amazon building with a whole bunch of Amazon employees normally. But look at this street right here. Worst street in all of Seattle, bar none. And particularly the last few months, bar none. Shootings, murders, you name it. Just people getting ripped off, carjackings. I mean, the list was just, it's one of two places in Seattle that the police basically just shut down. They just shut down, put in a mobile crime unit there and shut it down. Now, because there were open air drug markets, and they basically let the criminal element run free willy-nilly. And then in other parts of the city, because of the whole CDC not being, telling people not to sweep out the homeless encampments, and homeless encampments just kind of went everywhere. They just grew like mushrooms during the winter here in Seattle, where you got no sun and you got a lot of rain, conducive to mushrooms and moss. So you've got this situation where these things just exploded. And now we're trying to reel that back in. So here in the city of Seattle, mayor is saying, you know what? We're going to do a sweep there. We're going to do a sweep there. We're going to do a sweep there. And then when that happens, and when they do, these containments of individual crime areas, that crime just squirts other places, right? It just gone somewhere else. It doesn't disappear. It just goes somewhere else. So that's what we're in the midst of right now. And other cities across the nation are battling the same thing, trying to get their downtown cores going, because downtown areas are the drivers of business. They're huge for tax base. They're huge for bringing other companies in. Hey, you want to come in and bring your company to our downtown? And, an official goes there and they're stepping over human poop on the sidewalk. It smells like piss, because it literally is piss on the sidewalk. Sorry to be crude, but that's one of the things of walking around downtown Seattle. It smells like piss. So there's that. And not all the streets, but they're the streets where it's going to be just not ideal. And so, if you're a big company and you've got your person that handles your real estate going there and had to dodge the poop on the sidewalk and it smelled like piss. And there was a shooting while I was there. Half the stores were boarded up. And I read a story about Amazon they're not putting their people in their buildings. Weyerhaeuser, they're taking a flyer and they're going to bring their people back, but only once or twice a week, and because they want to make some use out of the space, and they want to kind of get people used to the idea of going back to work. But I don't think we're going to lease any real estate in that downtown core. That is what we are battling right now across the United States. And that's one of those things where President Biden said, we got to fund the police, not defund them. You guys need to go back to work in downtown. It's like, okay, everybody's working on it, but that doesn't happen overnight. And especially in a city like Portland, that it doesn't have the big cruise ships coming in to drop off a whole bunch of people, and you don't have that kind of tourism going on. And you had more negative impact in the downtown from the 100 whatever nights of mostly violent rioting. I'm going to go to that term now, mostly violent, because it certainly wasn't mostly peaceful. And I'm tired of talking about that, because it was so clearly not mostly peaceful that I think everybody gets the idea. So the mostly violent rioting, mostly violent protesting that occurred was greater in Portland. And from that standpoint, they're going to have a harder pull bringing people back to their downtown core. And they're having a harder pull hiring police officers. That is not going well. Mayor Ted down in Portland, he indicated, yeah, it's not really working out. It's that retire, rehire program that we implemented. It has not been a success. When you hear a politician say that it's not been a success, that means it is a disaster. It is a straight up failure. And so what you've got going on is you've got more cops retiring from these cities than you've got coming in. Portland's got another 40 cops that are eligible to retire in July, I think, this summer. That's going to leave a mark. I just did a podcast on a wrongful death claim in Seattle because we didn't have enough cops to handle a situation where a guy's having a heart attack and couldn't get the cops there fast enough to let the firefighters do their job. And a 13-year-old kid watched his dad basically die on the spot because 911 couldn't get the cops there fast enough. Don't have enough to go around. Stuff like that's going to happen. So a lot of cause and effect here. But let's get back to this storyline. But the regional loss is far less than a number of other large metropolitan areas experienced, including San Francisco. Why would that be? San Francisco is great. It doesn't have any poop on. Oh, it does. Needles everywhere. Oh, yeah, it does. Oh, yeah. Which lost 6.3% of its population in 2021. 6.3% of its population. That's enormous. Now, we're reasonable. And I'm going to hit the flip side here before I go even further into this. There's been an exodus from a lot of big cities, and there's going back in for sure. But the exodus, it was compounded by not only coronavirus, but by people not wanting to live in these cities necessarily. 6.3% of its population in 2021, San Francisco lost. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and San Francisco lost a total of over 700,000 people from July 2020 to July 2021. July 2020, that is the heart of the protests. And I think in Portland, people they're not moving in, and there's a certain number that are moving out. If people want to live in Portland, if Portland is their thing, if the Portland weird is their thing, then they're okay with it. They're probably okay with defunding the police. We had a deal here where a general manager who was a kid, granted he was a kid with a bad judgment. He started celebrating one of our, on Twitter, he was celebrating one of our police officers that recently got killed in the line of duty. And one of our, Jason Rants, called him out on that, and they had a little back and forth. And the kid is a manager of a movie theater, of Regal Movie Theater. He apparently may have lost his job, but he was celebrating the death of a police officer. He said it was helping clean up the streets. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a bad call. I mean, it's just a terrible call. If you're an adult and you're a normal human being, you understand that law enforcement dying isn't the direction that you want to go in, because that could be your life in need of police officer help at some point in time. And that's not really where you want to be. Fewer cops. That's not the direction we want to go in. But that's reasonable people. There's a lot of really unreasonable people in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and San Francisco. Some large metropolitan areas saw population increases, however. Shocking. Can you guess where they might be? You got it. Phoenix, Houston, Dallas, Austin, and Atlanta, which gained more than 300,000 residents. let's just take a little looky look and see what that actually kind of looks like as far as some of the breakdown. So I'm just going to skip to the good stuff because, I mean, who doesn't want to eat dessert all day long? 3 meals of dessert a day. If I could do that, it would be great. What are you going to have? Well, I'm probably going to have some Rocky Road ice cream with a, hot fudge sundae and then a blizzard on top of that for dinner. Does that sound pretty good? Oh, yeah, it does. It's going to make you feel terrible, but when you're putting it down, just put that down. All right. So let's skip down to top 10 counties in numeric decline. What state were they located? I'm not going to read out the county unless it's important. Top 10 counties in numeric decline. Just number of people that left. LA County, California. We got New York City. We got Illinois with Cook County, with Chicago. All right. We got another one in New York, another California, New York, California, and one in Florida, which was Miami-Dade County. Okay. So 9 out of the top 10 are located in predominantly Democrat-run cities and counties and states. Interesting. Okay. Well, let's move on. Let's see if this trend holds. Counties in percent decline. Number 1 county is in New York County. Then we go California, North Dakota. Well, that's because it was a really small county and it dropped just a little bit of people. After that, we go Louisiana, California, New York, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey. All right. That's percent decline. We've got, how about we take a look at metro areas with percent growth? Let's go the other way. St. George, Utah. Then we go, number 2 is Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I've talked about Coeur d'Alene. Whenever I talk about Coeur d'Alene, people get wildly upset because they're like, shh, don't talk about Coeur d'Alene. We don't want any more people coming here. Keep your liberal nonsense over that side of the mountains in Seattle, because they assume that since I'm from Seattle, that I go down that road. And as you know, that's not the road I travel on. I travel on the reasonable road, right? So we got Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We've got Myrtle Beach of percent growth. That's been a big one. North Myrtle Beach, North Carolina. Another county in Florida. Then we got Boise City, Idaho, another Idaho. Again, don't tell them I told you. And then we've got Florida, and Utah. Those are growth areas, largely Republican-run cities and counties. Interesting. What is the correlation here? I'll let you make that determination. Let's just keep going here. The metro areas in numeric growth, just straight numbers. We start off with Texas, with Dallas. We go to Phoenix. We go to Houston. We go to Austin. It's all Texas, right? Then we go Riverside, San Bernardino, Ontario, California. And my theory on that one is it's right next to LA County. And so people are moving there just to get the F out of LA County. Okay. Then we've got, we go Georgia, Florida, Texas, North Carolina. Those have the greatest amount of growth. Is there a clearly defined pattern here? Yes, there is. Super interesting, right? Super interesting. And did some of that have to do with the whole coronavirus thing and how individual cities and counties handled that and states handled that? Absolutely. People are moving to Republican states, counties, cities, and they are moving away from, or they have for the last year, they are moving away from these big cities and areas that are more Democrat run. It's pretty clear. I mean, there's not even a chance of saying, yeah, that's not the pattern. It is wildly the pattern. So will these population trends continue? Well, I know there's still a lot of people. We're on the real estate side of things. We're handling a lot of people that are getting out of Dodge, meaning they're leaving the Seattle area. So another thing to consider in this overall deal is, since we're reasonable here, we take consideration of all aspects of the storyline, because if you avoid something, if you're like, yeah, I'm just going to avoid that, which we all do. I do all the time. Like, yeah, I don't want to hear that because that doesn't really help my point of view. My point of view is this, and it's right. Now, one of the things with COVID is that we had a population decline in a lot of cities, because you had people dying and you didn't have the birth thing going on. Now, I know there was a thing about, well, people are at home, so they've got more quality free time on their hands, and we're going to have a population explosion in about 9 months. Well, actually, it doesn't look that way. We had a natural decrease in about a year time period in 2021 because of the whole COVID thing. And so you've got that. But I think the numbers that we just looked at, they kind of point to, all right, people leaving those big cities, getting the heck out of Dodge, understood, yep, that makes sense, going to places where they've got a little bit more freedom, all right? And even the whole, hey, let's go vacation in Florida thing by Democrat, people in Congress. We saw that as an example of, well, where are they going to? Oh, they're going to Florida to vacation because there's no mask mandate there and they can do whatever they want. We saw that as a prime example of people, even if they're on the other side and they're making all these mask mandates for their own constituents, where are they going? Someplace where they don't have to wear their mask. Or if there's a big group of them all together, they don't wear a mask. They just do their own thing. And, somebody took a picture of me and this looks really bad. The optics are horrible. Yes, they are. And so that kind of supports the whole thing of even people who don't believe in the no mask thing, when they want to go on vacation, where do they go? Someplace where there's no masks required. So I've had lots of people tell me before our mask mandate was over how beautiful it was to go to Portland. Had people email me and say, hey, it was great there. And because there's such a contrast, because cities like Seattle and states like Washington have been, and Portland and Oregon, I think they're going to have a mask mandate forever or something along those lines. So just, crazy times. And that is going to dictate, all right, a bunch of people are going to leave, not as many people coming in. Yeah, you might want to rethink that. You think that you're protecting your people. In fact, you are turning them away, and people don't want to live like that, I don't think. Some people do. They just love wearing their mask in their cars, going down that whole road, wearing a mask outside. Watching a high schooler go to school the other day, walking. I live close to a high school, and I was watching a high schooler walk by herself on a sidewalk, nobody coming, nobody behind her, just wearing a mask. It's like, all right, yeah, okay, well, if that makes you feel more comfortable, and that's your call. But for the rest of us, when I'm outside, I don't want to be wearing a mask. When I'm in the gym, I don't want to be wearing a mask, getting my own oxygen that's already half used. Crazy times, right? So that's the overall general trend, is a lot of cities and counties and towns that we've heard about having population, incoming population, and a lot of cities that we've talked about here and on, I almost said Seattle Real Estate Podcast, but on News for Reasonable People. There is hard evidence that people are leaving those areas. Whether it's a long-term thing, don't really know. But there's hard evidence right now in mass. I mean, we just read the stats. Those are the directions things are going. What will that do to voting patterns over time? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to find out, though, right? Okay, that's it for me on this one. Thank you so much for joining. I will catch up soon. We'll talk then. Bye for now.